This sound, that sound, and the sounds we can't even identify. You're listening to Anne Carlini and Steve Black's weekly podcast, The Sound of.
So excited to start our second show, Steve.
Yeah, response was good from the first one.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the kind tweets and all the feedback. I really appreciate it because, you know, when you're kind of sitting in a room and you're just the two of us, really, you know, it's really hard to gauge like who's actually listening out there. Do you remember that show WKRP in Cincinnati?
Oh, yes.
Okay, there used to be a disc jockey called Johnny Fever.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that?
Booger.
And he would...
Got fired for saying booger.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. And I remember one episode he had to do the overnights, and it got to be about 3:30 in the morning. He just opened up the mic and went, "Is there anybody out there?" And all just kind of fell asleep. And believe me, there are times when you're a disc jockey, you feel that way. So thank you so much for the feedback on the show. And keep it coming, right?
Yes, indeed.
So something really bizarre happened in the world of rock and roll this past week that we want to touch on. Okay, there was somebody here who did not know what being Rick-rolled was. Did you know what that was, Steve?
No, I assumed it was a reference to Rick Astley because he was part of the story. I saw his name Rick and Rick rolled. I'm like, nah, I don't know what that is.
But you're not familiar with the
term? No.
No. Okay. It's when you troll somebody, like with the Rick Astley video, the song "Never Gonna Give You Up" from the '80s.
Yeah.
So they kind of clickbait you into, oh, watch this really super cool video of this cat eating peanut butter.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden, in the middle of the video, Rick Astley pops up and starts singing "Never Gonna Give You Up, Never Gonna Let You."
Okay.
That's kind of being Rick-rolled.
Okay. So it is a reference to his name.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I just assumed.
So this was a big thing, like, I don't know, 2 years ago. Maybe more. And finally it died out. Thank God, because I was sick and tired of being Rick-rolled, you know, every time I opened up some type of video to look at it. But of course, Dave Grohl just can't let anything rest. And he brought Rick Astley up on stage and Rick-rolled the entire audience. So the band, the Foo Fighters, started to play Nirvana, "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and they actually opened up with the opening chords. They started,
which would have been huge, by the way, because lots of former Nirvana members in Foo Fighters, but they don't play Nirvana songs. So you would have been losing your mind, like, oh my God, they're really going to do this?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
I actually, my first thought was, has the Foo Fighters ever done Nirvana songs?
The only time they did it was when Paul McCartney sat in. They played a Nirvana song. It was the original members of, well, not the original, but the surviving members of Nirvana with Paul McCartney. They did a one time only one song. I think it was for an award show or something. But that's the only time they played a Nirvana song. So
people at this festival in Japan probably were scratching their heads thinking, is Rick Astley going to sing Nirvana, "Smells Like Teen Spirit"? What is happening here? And then they kind of mashed it into "Never Gonna Give You Up," which Rick sang all the way through. You know, and Dave Grohl was, of course, just having the time of his life.
Yes.
Because that's the type of prankster Dave Grohl is.
Dave Grohl can break his leg on tour and have the time of his life. You know what I mean? Like, he turns it into the time of his life. So
that's right. He does. So he took a selfie with Rick, and the story goes that he met him 2 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes before they were about to go on stage, and said, "Hey, man, do you want to do this thing?"
Yeah.
And Rick said, "Of course I do. Are you kidding me?" And so now it's gone viral on the internet, and we're talking about it.
Yeah. Which instantly led me to, you know, all the cool things that I've seen at concerts with guest appearances. Again, I didn't really know who Rick Astley was until you showed me on your phone. Like, I didn't.
Do you
like,
believe this?
So had he come out
Steve
and done
Black,
that,
really?
had he come out in Detroit and done that song, I would have been like, who is this?
And what is this horrible song they're playing?
Right. But I have seen some really cool moments, and I assume you have as well, with special guests showing up.
Well, the one moment that really comes to mind, and the one I enjoyed, the most, I don't know if I should have been surprised by this or not, but I was. Sheryl Crow played a small venue here in Detroit. It's called Freedom Hill. And God, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like half the size of our DTE. How many people does it hold, Steve? What do you think? Maybe
7,000-ish?
Yeah, I was thinking like no more than 12 for sure, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's 12.
It's smaller than that?
Like most amphitheaters, every city has their big amphitheater on the outskirts of their city. It's half the size of your normal amphitheater.
It's very pretty.
Oh, it's a beautiful place
really
to see
nice.
a show. Yep.
And so this friend of mine kind of surprised me with these tickets because he knew how much I love Sheryl Crow. And of course, who came on stage to sing Picture but Kid Rock?
I was going to guess Kid Rock since I know they're friends.
Yes. And she just kind of quietly introduced him. They brought out a couple of those, what do they call them? The stools, the bar stools. And I think they just had an acoustic guitar behind them. And they just sat up there, the two of them, and sang that song, just raw. And it was so beautiful. I just loved it. And it was such a big surprise.
Right.
You know, even though they had duetted on that song,
right,
to see him actually come out, and there was no fanfare, no like, hey, everybody, Kid Rock. It wasn't like that. So I really, really super enjoyed that.
One of the most memorable moments for me, because it was such an odd occurrence, was Adam Sandler came out on stage with White Zombie and did More Human Than Human. And I just, for like half the song, I kept going, is this really happening? You know?
For real?
Yeah, it was out in L.A., and it was a White Zombie Pantera show. And, you know, Zombie was opening, and, you know, just it was exactly what you would expect, a White Zombie Pantera show in the 90s. And all of a sudden, our good friend, here's Adam Sandler. And I'm going, you know, and I was far enough back that I'm like, really? He's really going to sing this? And he did. Yeah, oh my God, it was both fun and funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't a goosebump moment by any means, but it was one of those, am I really watching this? You know? So that was pretty cool.
That's hilarious.
And then one I'll talk about just because of how bizarre, and I think you'll appreciate this, the backstage moment was, but I was at a G3 show, which should not surprise you, which is, you know, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, and then whoever the other guitarist happens to be. I think on this particular tour, it might have been Kenny Wayne Shepherd, but I'm not positive which of the G3s it was. But they brought Neil Schon out from Journey.
Wow.
And they just killed it. They played, you know, 2 songs together at the end of the night. Like, wow, this was great. And so when I went backstage, because I'm pretty good friends with Steve, I had suffered a softball injury. I had broken the index finger on my left hand in 2 places playing softball. And all of these, like, Hall of Fame level guitar players were staring at my hand, marveling. Like, and Neil actually said out loud, he said, I play softball. They're all looking at my hand going, oh, like it was the end of Earth, because they're great guitar players looking at my mangled finger. Like,
you were freaking them out. Like, no!
They were so uncomfortable. You know, it was like if somebody could have come in and cut their own foot off, and they wouldn't have been as moved as they were at my crooked finger. They were just like, no, that's the worst thing ever. You know, so that was kind of a cute moment.
It's kind of like nails on a chalkboard, right? Well, being here in Detroit, and Bob Seger and Kid Rock live here. So I remember a time, like after Kid Rock went national, and he kind of had carte blanche wherever he went, at any venue. And so every time a band that he liked came to Detroit, Kid Rock would end up on stage at some point. It was like, because at first it was, hey, did you hear Kid Rock got up on stage with Leonard Skinner the other night? Hey, Kid Rock got up on stage with ZZ Top the other night. Hey, did you hear that Kid Rock? And it was like, oh my God.
And he just did with Foreigner a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like whenever he wanted to be on stage, it just seemed like he showed up and went, hey, man. Give me the microphone.
Sure.
Here we go. And then kind of like Bob Seger has recently made some surprising appearances. He was on stage with Bruce Springsteen not
that
too
would
long
have been
ago.
super moving.
Yeah.
And I know he came out with 3 Doors Down and did the song that they did together on a 3 Doors Down album. He came out and sang that with him.
Yeah, I can hear that song in my head, but for life of me.
Landing in London.
That's right,
Yeah.
Landing in London, which I just love that song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, so I just wonder if the Eagles are going to be in town, whether or not he's going to get up on stage with them.
I don't know. I
would like that.
I don't know.
Against the Wind.
Yeah,
They could do that.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Well, he's been doing Heartbreak Tonight with him because he co-wrote that song anyway. I saw this was kind of an interesting one, and again, it's got a fun story to go with it, a little behind-the-scenes story. Back when I worked with Ted Nugent, which many years ago, Ted and I did a morning show together. Metallica invited him to come out and play. So it was Palace of Auburn Hills, and so lights go out, and you knew the encore was coming. All of a sudden, Ted runs out on stage by himself and just starts playing guitar. And just keeps playing guitar and keeps playing guitar. It was like 6 minutes before Metallica came out. And then they all played Stranglehold together. And it was really great. It was really great. But what had happened, I didn't find out till the next day on the morning show, actually. Ted told me he went to the spot they told him to go to, and the guitar tech gave him one of James's guitars and shined the flashlight, and said, "Go, Ted, you're on." Well, the band were going to go out on stage first and introduce Ted and then bring him out. So they were pissed that he went out on stage and then just started playing. And he got the crowd all going, and they were thinking about not going out. They were like, "Screw this guy. Who does he think he is?" You know. They didn't find out until after the show themselves that somebody had sent him up there.
Man, that must have been some tense moments on stage.
Yeah.
Ted's probably thinking, "Why are these guys giving me the
Where
cold
is everybody?
shoulder?"
How long do I have to play? You know?
Yeah, but when they eventually converged on stage, I wonder how that how that worked.
Well, thankfully, once they jumped into Stranglehold, like it all clicked and everybody was on the same page and it worked. So I think that helped a lot. Had it been uncomfortable on stage, it really might have been a nightmare. But
man, I saw one night I was watching Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and they just notoriously were at each other's throats, and somehow there were ghosts in the machine, and they had some really bad technical issues, and everything went down, and you could see the three of them clearly because it was just light enough where you could see them, and I was close enough to the stage. And Stephen Stills and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Stills and Nash almost got into a fist fight. For some reason, they couldn't decide on what to do next.
Wow.
And they ended up coming back on stage after a few minutes. But Crosby was like in the middle of it, like holding them back. It was like, what is going on? And they came back and they ended up doing a beautiful acoustic tunes. I mean, if any band could lose the electricity in the room and then continue on just as beautiful as it was before, just stunningly incredible, would be that band. But instead, they got into like a fist fight on stage in the back. It was crazy. It was like, wow, you guys just can't step a few feet forward behind the curtain.
Right.
I mean, they just didn't even care. But still, they continued on. But I'll never forget that. But yeah, some interesting moments on stage. So
another one I wanted to mention because this was very unique. This was not one band, though, bringing somebody out. I'm a media partner through the Chop Shop with something called Shiprocked, which is an annual cruise. And they, 15 to 20 just brilliant bands, and it's so much fun. And you're on a ship and you're in the ocean, and what more could you ask for? Well, they started years ago doing something called the Stowaways. They book all their regular bands, and then they grab 2 or 3 members of other big name bands and just bring them out, and they do like an all-star show.
Oh, how cool is that?
So last year, the Stowaways played an entire set of all musicians who had passed away.
Oh.
Everything from Michael Jackson to, David Bowie. So like Jeff Tate would come out and sing Space Oddity from Bowie, and you're just losing your mind, and it's all this stuff. So all of a sudden they bring out Josh Todd, who's the, frontman for Buck Cherry, Jacoby Shaddix, who's the frontman for Papa Roach, and Sonny Sandoval from POD. And they did Sabotage from the Beastie Boys.
Oh,
and
I bet that was fantastic.
Because it's not, it's like I could picture Sonny doing it, and I can almost picture Jacoby, but Josh Todd doing Beastie Boys, And the way the three of them put it together with this all-star band, those are magical moments. Like there's no little dive bar anywhere in America where you're going to go and see that. Mm-hmm. That was a once in a lifetime thing.
I can totally see Josh Todd pulling that off. He's got the persona on stage. I think I would love to hear that. I wonder if someone's got that on video.
Well, with all the cameras in the crowd.
I'm sure. Now, what am I saying? Yeah. All I got to do is ask Google, and there it is.
It was only back in January, so it's not like this was, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Pre-iPhone, whatever we're on now. What is it, 7? Mm-hmm. So everybody's got one. And honestly, I've just scratch the surface. I've been to at least another 10 shows where there was a special guest performance, and I personally like them. I like them a lot because it's stuff you're not going to see anywhere else. But I do on occasion hear people complain, well, I paid to see that band, and if I wanted to see Kid Rock, I would go see Kid Rock. And, so you do occasionally get somebody who will whine about it, but I think that's just the world we live in these days.
Billy Joel does that residency in New York.
Yeah.
At Madison Square Garden, and they say that it's come to the point now where you just never know who's going to walk on stage.
Yeah.
And he just recently brought out Axl Rose.
Yeah, I
because
think that
he
was
likes
in
to
LA,
do.
though.
Was it?
Yeah, I think that was the LA show.
Because Billy likes to do Highway to Hell.
Yeah.
And so Axl sang it. So there you go, kind of a cross of three bands there.
Right.
But they say that he really enjoys that, having other people come up and perform songs. I saw him bring a kid up who wanted to do New York State of Mind on the piano. He says, I play piano and I'd love to play that for you.
Right.
Oh my God, can you imagine the pressure? And he did it.
I love when they do that.
It was just beautiful. I don't know how the kid didn't choke, playing right there on stage in front of Billy Joel. But yeah, he did a really, really good job. I don't mind it. I like when they bring other people up. I think it's exciting for the crowd as long as it doesn't go on too long. I don't like it when they bring kids up. I have a problem with that. I don't know. There was a moment during Metallica where I think Lars' daughter or some little girl, they put her on the drum kit.
Yeah,
I went,
just for a second or
two. Just for a
second.
second.
Yeah.
As long as it's just for a second.
Right.
I don't want it to go on any longer. Although Green Day's done that. They've brought kids up from the audience and put instruments in their hands and gave them microphones and said, here, sing the song.
Well, Steve Vai did an entire tour where he would invite people from he would grab one or two people from the audience, put them on stage and write a song with them.
Oh, really?
Not just hum a bass line, and they would hum it and the bass player would play it, and then just make noises with your mouth for drums, and then the drummer would play it. And he would say, just make noises for what a guitar should do, and then he would play it and then send them back down into the crowd and write a song on the spot.
That's Joe Satriani. He can do anything.
Oh, it's Steve Vai.
Oh, Steve Vai. Oh, that was Steve Vai?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thinking of the other great guitar player.
Well, we better stop yammering for a second here.
Yeah, I'm getting my Joes and my Steves mixed up. All right, Steve. So coming up next, Rev's going to step in, and we're going to do our best to make you cry again in rock and roll trivia.
Oh, dear.
Let's see what you know and what you don't know. And also, he has some stories about a possible Foreigner reunion, and we're going to talk about that Black Sabbath farewell concert film. All coming up next on The Sound Of.
The Sound Of.